Namaskaram. Why is it that human beings, the most intelligent species on this planet, struggle to remain calm? A tree stands in the storm, a bird sings even in the rain, but the human mind, so powerful, so capable, trembles at the slightest disturbance. Why is this? Calmness is not something that needs to be created, it is something that is already present within you. The trees, the rivers, the mountains, they are not trying to be peaceful, they simply are. It is only the human being who has lost this natural state. The very intelligence that makes us capable of great things also entangles us in unnecessary complexity. Instead of simply being, we constantly create turbulence within ourselves. This turbulence is not because life is difficult, it is because we do not know how to keep our inner world in harmony. If you look at a child, you will see a natural calmness. A child may cry one moment, but the next moment they are laughing and playing. They do not hold on to thoughts or emotions for too long, they do not analyze or overthink every experience. But as people grow older, they start accumulating layers of memory, fears, expectations, and unnecessary concerns. These layers make the mind restless. The natural calmness that existed in childhood is buried under constant mental activity. People do not lose their peace because of external circumstances. They lose it because they are identified with the fluctuations of the mind. When the mind is disturbed, it feels as if life itself is disturbed. But this is not true. Life is always happening in its own way. The sun rises, the wind blows, the seasons change. Life does not become disturbed, only the human mind does. The mind functions like water. When it is still, it reflects everything clearly, but when it is agitated, it distorts reality. A restless mind exaggerates problems, imagines threats that do not exist, and clings to unnecessary thoughts. It creates a false sense of urgency where there is none. If a person does not learn how to handle their own mind, even in the best situations, they will find reasons to be unhappy. Most people believe they need to do something to become calm. They think they must practice techniques, follow rituals, or change their environment. But calmness is not an achievement, it is the absence of disturbance. If you stop throwing stones into a pond, the water will naturally become still. In the same way, if you stop feeding unnecessary thoughts, the mind will settle on its own. This does not mean you should suppress or control your thoughts. It simply means you should not get involved with every passing emotion or idea. The more you observe your mind instead of reacting to it, the more you will see that thoughts come and go, but you are not them. If calmness was something external, then only certain people could access it. But calmness is within everyone. No matter what your background, situation, or past experiences are, the ability to be still is already present. The problem is not that calmness is difficult. The problem is that people are too distracted to notice it. From the moment they wake up, they are absorbed in thoughts, responsibilities, social interactions, and digital distractions. There is no space left for stillness. If a person constantly fills their mind with activity, how can they expect peace? Just as physical clutter can make a room feel suffocating, mental clutter makes life feel overwhelming. People accumulate unnecessary information, opinions, and worries, thinking they are staying informed or prepared, but in reality, they are only increasing their own restlessness. To remain calm, one does not need to escape from life, but simply needs to stop adding unnecessary disturbances. If the mind is left undisturbed, calmness is inevitable. Most people believe that their disturbances come from the outside world. They think that situations, people, or circumstances are responsible for their lack of peace. But if we look closely, we will see that external events are only triggers. The real source of disturbance is within us. It is not what happens outside that makes us suffer, it is how we react to it. If two people are placed in the same situation, one may remain calm while the other becomes completely disturbed. This clearly shows that the situation itself is not the cause of suffering. It is the way we perceive and respond to it. Human beings have been given an incredible gift, the ability to think, analyze, and create. But this same ability, when left unchecked, becomes a source of suffering. Instead of using the mind as a tool, most people become trapped in their thoughts. A simple incident can turn into hours or even days of mental agitation. A single word spoken by someone can lead to an entire storm within. The external world moves on, but internally the disturbance continues. This is not because the situation is powerful, but because one does not know how to keep their inner world in balance. Look at any stressful moment in your life. Was it the event itself that disturbed you, or was it your interpretation of it? The same traffic that frustrates one person may be an opportunity for another to listen to music and relax. The same workload that overwhelms one individual may be a challenge that energizes another. The event is neutral, the reaction is personal. But most people do not realize they are reacting out of habit. Over time, they create patterns of response that keep them in a constant state of agitation. These patterns become so ingrained that they start believing it is the world that is disturbing them, rather than their own inability to remain stable. Imagine a person who constantly blames the wind for the way their boat moves, but never learns to adjust the sail. No matter how much they complain, the wind will not stop blowing. The wise person understands that the wind cannot be controlled, but the direction of the sail can be adjusted. In the same way, external situations cannot always be changed, but the way we respond to them is entirely in our hands. If one learns to master their own reactions, they will find that most of life's so-called problems are nothing more than passing situations that do not need to take away their peace. The reason people continue to suffer is that they are unwilling to take responsibility for their inner state. It is easier to blame others than to look within. If one truly wants to be free from disturbances, they must first recognize that their reactions are their own creation. No one else is sitting inside their mind creating thoughts and emotions. If anger, fear, anxiety, or frustration arise, they are arising from within, not from outside. The moment a person realizes this, they begin to understand that they are the source of both their suffering and their peace. This realization is not about guilt or self-blame, it is about empowerment. If you are the source of your disturbances, then you are also the one who can dissolve them. Most people think that peace will come when everything around them is perfect. But the world has never been perfect, nor will it ever be. The nature of life is such that things change, people behave unpredictably, and challenges arise. Waiting for the world to be ideal is like waiting for the ocean to be still before you learn how to swim. The real mastery of life is to remain calm and steady, no matter how rough the waves are. The first step toward this mastery is understanding that it is not the world that disturbs you, it is your own reactions. Most human suffering comes from the desire to control things that are beyond control. People want life to happen exactly as they expect, but life does not follow personal preferences. Situations change, people behave in unexpected ways, and events unfold in ways that were never planned. Yet, the mind constantly resists this natural flow, trying to hold on to the illusion that everything should be predictable and secure. The more one tries to control the uncontrollable, the more frustration, anxiety, and stress they create within themselves. This is the root cause of much of the restlessness and agitation people experience daily. If you observe nature, you will see that nothing is trying to control anything. A river flows wherever the land allows. Trees grow in response to sunlight, water, and soil without resistance. Birds migrate according to the seasons without questioning why. There is no conflict in nature because there is no attempt to control. It simply moves with the forces around it. But human beings, because of their intellect, believe they must dictate how everything should be. This attachment to control leads to endless struggles. When things go according to their expectations, they feel happy. When things do not, they feel disturbed. This means their inner state is entirely dependent on external factors, making them vulnerable to even the smallest changes in life. There is a misconception that control brings stability. People think that if they manage to control every aspect of their life, career, relationships, environment, they will finally feel secure. But no matter how much effort is put into controlling external situations, something unexpected always happens. The real issue is not the unpredictability of life, but the idea that one must resist it. The tighter one tries to hold on to control, the more fragile they become. A mind that cannot accept change will always be restless because life is change. It is only when one realizes that control is an illusion that a deeper sense of peace can arise. Look at the moments when you have truly felt at ease. There were never times when you controlled everything. There were times when you simply allowed things to be as they were. Maybe it was during a walk in nature, a moment of deep laughter, or a time of silence. In these moments, there was no resistance, no need to dictate how everything should be. You were simply present. The struggle arises when the mind becomes attached to how things should be, rather than seeing them as they are. The gap between expectation and reality is where suffering begins. When something unpleasant happens, most people immediately react with resistance. If plans change, if someone behaves unexpectedly, or if circumstances take a turn that was not anticipated, there is instant frustration. But ask yourself, does resisting reality change it? When you argue with what is happening, does it undo the situation? Or does it only create more inner conflict? If something has already happened, it is already in the past. The moment it becomes reality, it is beyond control. The only thing still within your hands is how you respond to it. Letting go of the need to control does not mean becoming passive or indifferent. It simply means acting wisely rather than reacting emotionally. It means doing what is necessary in each moment without the expectation that everything must go a certain way. When action is taken without attachment to the outcome, there is an effortless flow to life. The mind remains calm because it is no longer tied to how things must unfold. This is why some people can remain peaceful even in the middle of chaos. They understand that life moves according to its own rhythm, not according to personal desires. The more one aligns with this truth, the more they experience a deep and unshakable calmness. The mind is constantly generating thoughts, emotions, and perceptions, creating an endless stream of activity. Most people are so deeply identified with this activity that they believe they are their thoughts and emotions. If anger arises, they say, "I am angry." If fear arises, they say, "I am afraid." If sadness arises, they say, "I am depressed." This identification with mental and emotional fluctuations is the primary reason why people experience suffering. They do not realize that thoughts and emotions are like passing clouds, while they themselves are like the sky, untouched, vast, and unchanging. When one becomes too involved with their thoughts, they lose perspective. A small worry turns into a great anxiety, a minor irritation becomes a deep frustration, and a passing sadness transforms into a state of depression. This happens because the mind does not know how to let things pass. It holds on, repeats, and magnifies. Most of the suffering people experience is not because of what is happening in the present moment, but because of the mind's tendency to replay the past or imagine the future. If one truly observes, they will see that in this very moment there is no problem. It is only the mind that creates an illusion of difficulty by attaching itself to thoughts and emotions. The ability to detach from mental activity does not mean suppressing thoughts or emotions. It does not mean fighting with the mind or forcing oneself to think positively. Suppression only creates more inner conflict, making thoughts even stronger. Detachment means recognizing that thoughts and emotions are not personal. They are simply happenings within the system. Just as the body digests food, the mind generates thoughts. Just as the heart beats, emotions arise, they are natural processes. But if one learns to observe these processes without getting caught in them, they will see that the mind can function without disturbing the inner stillness. A simple way to practice detachment is to watch the mind as if it belongs to someone else. When a thought arises, instead of reacting, just notice it. When an emotion arises, instead of getting involved, just observe it. If this is done consistently, it becomes clear that thoughts and emotions come and go on their own. They do not need permission to appear, and they do not need to be fought against. The more one watches without interference, the weaker the grip of the mind becomes. Over time, this practice creates a deep space between oneself and mental activity. In this space, there is a profound stillness, untouched by whatever is happening inside or outside. Those who have mastered this ability remain calm even in difficult situations. They do not get overwhelmed by temporary emotions, nor do they allow passing thoughts to dictate their actions. They see that the mind is just a tool meant to be used when necessary, but not something that should control life. When there is no attachment to thoughts, they lose their power to create suffering. When there is no attachment to emotions, they pass through like a breeze without leaving any disturbance. Most people live as if they are trapped in their own minds, constantly battling their thoughts and emotions constantly, but the door to freedom has always been open. The only thing required is awareness, the ability to step back and see that the mind is just an instrument, not the essence of who they are. Once this realization deepens, the struggle with thoughts and emotions disappears. The mind continues to function, but its disturbances no longer have the ability to shake the inner state. No matter what arises, there remains a deep, unshakable calmness within. The breath is one of the most fundamental aspects of life, yet most people go through their entire existence without paying any attention to it. It is happening every moment, sustaining the body, yet it remains unnoticed. The breath is deeply connected to both the mind and emotions, though this connection is rarely understood. If one observes closely, they will see that whenever they are anxious, angry, or fearful, their breathing pattern changes. It becomes shallow, rapid, or irregular. Likewise, when they are calm, joyful, or at peace, their breath becomes slow, deep, and steady. This simple observation reveals that the breath and the mind are not separate. They are two sides of the same process. If the breath is disturbed, the mind becomes restless. If the breath is balanced, the mind remains steady. Since the breath is something that can be consciously controlled, it serves as a direct doorway to inner stability. Unlike thoughts and emotions, which often seem uncontrollable, the breath is always accessible. No matter where one is or what they are experiencing, they can always bring attention to their breath and regulate it. This is why breath control has been emphasized in various ancient traditions as a means to attain mastery over the mind. By consciously slowing down the breath, one can immediately bring a sense of relaxation and clarity. It is a simple yet powerful way to shift from agitation to calmness. If one takes even a few moments each day to observe their breathing, they will begin to notice subtle changes in their inner state. Instead of reacting impulsively to situations, they will have a sense of space between the stimulus and their response. This space allows for greater awareness and better choices. When thoughts do not race uncontrollably, the nervous system remains balanced and the entire being moves toward a state of harmony. In moments of stress or uncertainty, people often look for external solutions. They seek comfort in distractions, engage in unnecessary arguments, or try to control situations that are beyond their influence. But all of these efforts are directed outward, while the real key to calmness lies within. The breath is always present, always offering an opportunity to regain balance. If, in a moment of anger or fear, one simply takes a deep, conscious breath instead of reacting immediately, they will experience a shift. The emotion that felt overwhelming just a moment ago will begin to lose its intensity. The mind that was rushing in different directions will start settling down. This is not a theory, but something that can be directly experienced by anyone who applies it. Many people believe that achieving calmness requires years of practice, but the breath offers an instant way to bring stability. No matter how chaotic the surroundings may be, if one can remain connected to their breath, they will not be carried away by external circumstances. Even in the face of challenges, they will be able to respond with clarity rather than react with confusion. The breath serves as an anchor, keeping one grounded in the present moment. It is only when the mind is lost in the past or future that agitation arises. But the breath is always happening now. Bringing attention to it naturally dissolves unnecessary mental activity. By making breath awareness a part of daily life, one gradually develops the ability to remain calm at all times. Instead of being controlled by emotions and thoughts, they become the master of their inner state. The breath is not just a biological function, it is a tool for inner transformation. The more one understands and works with it, the less they are disturbed by the ever-changing nature of the outside world. Silence is one of the most powerful forces in existence. In today's world, people are constantly surrounded by noise, external noise from conversations, technology, and busy environments, as well as internal noise from endless thoughts, worries, and emotions. Silence is not just the absence of sound, it is the absence of unnecessary mental activity. It is a state where the mind is not constantly reacting, analyzing, or commenting on everything. The ability to remain silent internally is one of the greatest strengths a person can cultivate because it brings clarity, stability, and a deep sense of peace. When the mind is noisy, it is like a turbulent ocean. Every little wave of thought or emotion distorts perception and creates unnecessary agitation. But when silence is cultivated, the mind becomes like a still lake, reflecting reality clearly. In such a state, decisions are made with greater wisdom, emotions do not overpower intelligence, and life unfolds without unnecessary struggle. Most problems are not created by situations themselves, but by the excessive mental commentary surrounding them. Silence removes this unnecessary interference, allowing one to see things as they are, rather than through the distortions of an overactive mind. If a person observes closely, they will notice that most of their thoughts are repetitive and unproductive. The same worries, opinions, and judgments play in the mind like a broken record, creating stress without solving anything. But in silence, these patterns begin to lose their power. When the mind is given space to be still, it naturally resets itself. Just as the body needs rest to heal and function optimally, the mind needs moments of silence to regain balance. Without this, it remains cluttered, restless, and exhausted, leading to unnecessary emotional disturbances. Silence also enhances one's ability to listen, not just to others, but to life itself. Most people do not truly listen. They only wait for their turn to speak or think about what to say next. They are more occupied with their own thoughts than with what is actually happening around them. But a silent mind is receptive, open, and aware. It picks up on subtleties that would otherwise go unnoticed. In conversations, silence allows for deeper understanding rather than reactive responses. In daily life, it creates a heightened sensitivity to everything, sounds, sensations, and even one's own emotions, without being overwhelmed by them. There is a misconception that silence means passivity or inaction. But true silence is not about withdrawing from life, it is about engaging with it more fully, without the interference of unnecessary mental noise. When silence is cultivated, even actions become more effective. A person who acts from a place of inner stillness does not waste energy on impulsive reactions or needless conflicts. Their presence itself becomes calming to those around them, because they are not constantly projecting their own restlessness onto others. Creating moments of silence each day does not require isolation or drastic changes. It simply requires awareness. Even in the busiest environments, one can find moments of stillness, pausing for a few seconds before responding to a situation, taking a moment to observe the breath, or simply choosing not to engage in unnecessary thoughts. All of these are ways to bring silence into daily life. Over time, this practice deepens, and silence is no longer something one has to seek. It becomes a natural state. The mind no longer clings to unnecessary disturbances, and life unfolds with a profound sense of ease. The ability to remain inwardly silent is not a weakness, it is a tremendous strength. It allows one to navigate life with clarity and stability unaffected by the noise of the world. Most people live as if they are in a constant battle with life. They resist what is happening, they struggle against the inevitable, and they carry an unnecessary burden of worry, stress, and emotional turmoil. But if one looks closely, they will see that life itself is not against them. It is simply unfolding the way it is meant to. The sun rises and sets, the seasons change, and everything moves according to a natural rhythm. It is only the human mind that creates resistance, and this resistance is the primary cause of inner turmoil. When resistance is present, even small difficulties feel overwhelming. A simple inconvenience becomes a source of frustration. A minor change in plans leads to unnecessary stress. An unexpected event is seen as a problem rather than just another part of life. This happens because the mind clings to the idea that things must go a certain way. And when reality does not align with these expectations, suffering arises. But life does not conform to personal preferences. It moves according to its own intelligence, which is far greater than any individual plan or expectation. Most suffering is not caused by external situations, but by internal resistance. If one accepts what is happening without unnecessary mental struggle, they will notice that even challenges lose their intensity. This does not mean that difficulties will not arise, but they will not create the same level of suffering. A person who accepts life as it is remains steady, while one who resists is constantly disturbed. The difference is not in the situation itself, but in the way it is perceived and handled. Imagine a river flowing down a mountain. It does not stop to complain about the rocks in its path. It does not resist or fight against obstacles. It simply finds a way around them and continues flowing. The water does not see the rock as a problem, it just adapts and moves forward. In the same way, those who learn to flow with life rather than resist it experience far less suffering. They do not waste energy wishing for things to be different, they simply respond to what is, without unnecessary emotional turbulence. This does not mean one should become passive or indifferent. Acceptance is not about giving up or avoiding action, it is about acting from a place of clarity rather than resistance. When the mind is caught in resistance, actions are driven by fear, frustration, or anxiety, leading to ineffective and impulsive decisions. But when one accepts the reality of the situation first, they can respond with wisdom rather than react with emotion. This leads to solutions rather than struggles, to conscious choices rather than blind reactions. If one observes their own life, they will see that many of their greatest struggles were not caused by what happened but by their inability to accept it. People hold on to past events, wishing they had been different. They resist change, fearing the unknown. They fight against emotions, trying to suppress what they do not want to feel. But all of this creates unnecessary suffering. The moment one stops resisting, there is a profound sense of relief. The energy that was previously wasted on struggle is now available for clear thinking, meaningful action, and inner peace. Acceptance does not mean one must like everything that happens. It simply means seeing things as they are without adding unnecessary mental resistance. It means acknowledging that life moves according to a larger intelligence and that clinging to expectations only creates suffering. When this is understood deeply, there is an effortless sense of calm, no matter what happens. Instead of wasting energy resisting reality, one learns to move with it, responding with clarity and stability rather than frustration and fear. Most people seek peace and calmness outside of themselves, believing that external circumstances must be perfect in order for them to feel at ease. They think that once they achieve certain goals, acquire certain things, or have the right people around them, they will finally be able to relax. But this search for calmness in the external world is endless because life is always changing. Situations shift, people come and go, and no matter how much effort is put into controlling circumstances, something unexpected always happens. If calmness is dependent on external conditions, it will always remain fragile, easily disturbed by even the smallest change. True calmness is not found by arranging life in a certain way, it is found by creating inner stability. This means that no matter what happens outside, there is a space within that remains untouched. Just as the ocean has deep, still waters beneath its surface waves, a person who cultivates inner stability is not shaken by temporary disturbances. The surface may be affected, but the depth remains untouched. This depth does not come from controlling life, but from understanding that real peace is an internal state, not an external condition. If a person observes their own life, they will notice that their emotional state is often dictated by external situations. If something goes well, they feel happy. If something goes wrong, they feel disturbed. This means they are living in a state of constant fluctuation, never truly stable, always at the mercy of what is happening around them. This is why many people feel exhausted, not because life is inherently stressful, but because their inner state is completely tied to the outside world. They have no foundation of inner stability, no anchor that keeps them steady. When the winds of life become unpredictable, inner stability is not about suppressing emotions or pretending to be unaffected by life. It is about creating a space within where everything can be seen clearly without being overwhelmed. When emotions arise, they are acknowledged, but they do not take control. When situations change, they are dealt with, but they do not shake the core of one's being. This kind of stability does not come through avoidance or denial, but through deep awareness. When one is fully aware of their own mind, emotions, and reactions, they begin to see that they are not these temporary fluctuations. They are something deeper, something that remains steady no matter what happens. A simple way to cultivate inner stability is to regularly take time to sit in stillness and observe. Not to judge, not to analyze, but simply to observe. Watch the thoughts come and go, watch the emotions rise and fall, and notice how everything is constantly changing. In this observation, a deep truth becomes clear. Nothing stays the same, yet there is something within that remains untouched by these changes. The more one connects with this inner stillness, the less they are affected by external disturbances. Another key aspect of inner stability is to stop seeking validation, happiness, or security from the outside. When a person depends on others' opinions, material success, or external achievements to feel at peace, they are constantly vulnerable. But when peace comes from within, it is unshakable. No situation, no person, and no event can take it away. This does not mean disengaging from life, but engaging with it from a place of strength rather than neediness. Instead of being controlled by situations, one learns to respond with wisdom, clarity, and a deep sense of ease. Those who have inner stability are naturally calm, not because life is perfect for them, but because they do not allow external circumstances to dictate their inner state. They move through life with a sense of steadiness, unaffected by temporary ups and downs. They understand that true calmness is not found in the ever-changing world, but in the stillness within. The deeper one connects with this stillness, the more unshakable their peace becomes. allowing them to remain calm at all times. When one truly understands the nature of the mind, the breath, silence, and acceptance, a profound shift takes place. The constant struggle against life fades, and in its place arises an effortless state of calmness. No longer controlled by fleeting thoughts and emotions, no longer seeking stability in an ever-changing world, one discovers that peace has never been outside, it has always been within. Through awareness, detachment, and inner stability, life is no longer a series of reactions but a conscious flow, untouched by disturbances. This is not about escaping challenges but facing them with clarity, not about suppressing emotions but observing them without being consumed. The world may remain unpredictable, but within there is an unshakable stillness, a space of calm that nothing can disturb. When this is realized, remaining calm at all times is not an effort. It is simply the way one exists